All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
And best buddies there, two best buddies. Was that today that you guys were golfing?
Two best buddies. Yeah, last week we were out there. It was quite the – and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I've lost a lot to this guy in golf.
Yes.
But I have never lost to him when taking a face-off. I have never lost to him when it comes to the real deal Holyfield of dropping a puck
Doogie,
or dropping a TP5, whatever it happens to be.
Doogie, get my career face-off percentage because I would bet money that in my NHL career I was over a 50% guy.
I bet you were too. Right-handed shots.
You got me, Hazy.
I got you.
I actually tried, too. And it was like maybe the Leafs need some of your desperation at TaylorMade Golf, the face-off dot.
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
valid. Or they got to get some P790s out to California and start using them in a shootout or something. Or maybe Joseph Woll could have used one last night and maybe hit a little wedge over the glass instead of off some guy's shin padded in last night.
That was... Yeah, insanity. That was Marc-Andre Fleury.
That's right, at the World Juniors. Yep,
Scotty,
that's right. Patrick O'Sullivan. He hit.
Patrick O'Sullivan, yes.
Yep, he hit
I don't think
O'Sullivan.
they could do it
O'Sullivan
again.
looked around and couldn't believe it was in, and then he had the audacity to fist pump the goal too. O'Sullivan did. You go back and look at the celebration, you'd think he went end to end. It was a big moment. It was the turning point of that game, and effectively ended up closing it for the Americans against Canada. But, these San Jose Sharks, man, it's vintage when they play the Leafs. You know, it's almost like they're going through the Shark Tank in 2010.
That was insane, though. Like, I understood what he was doing, all of that. I get it. Like, there's mistakes, but, like, I don't think he could do it again if he tried. Like,
Crazy.
just the angle of the left skate, it hits, rolls in. Like, I don't know.
I thought there were
it was
challenges
insanity.
for kicking. Wasn't there like a distinct kicking motion?
No.
Would you even call that? Or
I'd be so embarrassed to challenge that.
Yeah,
I know.
you think if
oh,
Chief
you know what?
challenged
Everything else. How about these challenges, you guys? Like ever since those guys met in Florida with the monitors, every goal is like razor thin, and there's challenges all over the place. Wow. It's crazy, man.
Ask the Calgary Flames. There's people's heads are going to pop off in Calgary last night.
And Montreal, too. They're not happy about last night. Brendan Gallagher's freaking out after the game. And you're right. And everyone's on edge, right? Calgary lost. Montreal lost. They're in a race for the playoffs. So,
absolutely.
So they're on edge right now, and they need everything to break their way. The Leafs should not be on edge. You know, I guess they should be to an extent because they're chasing something. But that is twice in 2 weeks they've lost to the worst team in the league, which is very difficult to do, both times in a shootout. And obviously can't happen, obviously not acceptable. But I will say, this may surprise some people,
silver lining?
I will credit them for at least getting a point.
Dude,
I'm
such a chicken. I wanted to feel you out first because that was my thing. I'm like, you know what? There are some goofy things going on. And who knows how accurate these people on Twitter are, but like Tampa and Florida don't have the best record against bad teams either. But they scrounged something out of that, man. Maybe that's something they need at the end of the line. What's a hell of a play by Marner, by the way. Like everyone, I'd say 99% of the league just tries to take a wrist shot there and doesn't look for that pass.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And even Willie, maybe 95% of the league kind of one-time that into someone's skate or shin pad. He kind of got it, composed himself, and found the twine. But I know this is I know what's coming. Okay, I understand what's coming. Is the negative Leaf fans, which I understand why you're wired that way. I get it. A lot of times I see the world the way you see the world. Non-Leaf fans will come at me and say, "Here we go, Homer Hayes, blah blah blah."
All right.
I'm not saying it's acceptable to ever lose to San Jose, obviously, but the one at home 2 weeks ago is exponentially worse than last night. Because they were up 2-0 on home ice. You had to close that game, and they pissed away that point. Last night, they had a bad start. Credit the Sharks. Toffoli's been a Leaf killer. I told you yesterday, that was my best bet. I said it's coming. Toffoli's going to score tonight. He scored 2. And I thought Celebrini was really good last night. Yeah. But still, it's not it's not acceptable, but if you're down 5-3 with a minute to go and you find a way to get a point, every point is going to matter here the rest of the way. Like, Florida's playing tonight. Tampa just destroyed Utah last night. The Panthers probably beat up on the hockey club tonight. So it's going to be a race, but it was a minute away from being worse than it was.
Yeah, lost
at least
regulation.
They got a point. At least they got a point last night.
Silver lining, you're right.
Silver lining, at least
Here's
they got
a question for you. If they miss the playoffs, if they miss first place
nuclear.
by one.
Holy.
Sorry. I misspoke. I meant if they miss first place by 1 point. Like, we always do this, and I do this all the time. And because I call Ottawa games, or you're looking at Montreal, you're looking at Calgary, all these teams that are battling for it. I know for a fact the fan bases, if they come up short somewhere, they go, "Do you remember that game in November? Do you remember this?" Now, you're right. They got a point last night. So if they end up winning the Atlantic by 1 point, maybe you go, "Damn, that comeback."
That's right.
That comeback in the last. Now, if they lose it by 1 point, do you go, "What did they? How were they doing twice against that team?" Or is there another game that can walk to your mind?
Sum it up like
the other
this.
one's the Preds. I'll just get out in front of it before you say anything else. The other one's the Preds. Like, that's the two of the three worst teams in the league.
Yes.
They've thrown away 4 points in 2 weeks.
And it's frustrating for people, everybody watching, because every other night you watch Kara and Lindsay on SportsCenter, and it's Blues 7, Nashville 1, Blues 7, San Jose 1, and every other team goes in there and cleans their clock, and then it's like your team goes in there and it's like, what? They lost the game? Are you kidding me? But as far as last night, they dug down and they got a point. They can really make that worth it if they go into Los Angeles and win that hockey game.
Yeah.
And then you got Anaheim the next. Well, I don't even know if you can even say that's a layup. You can't.
Anaheim's been better, and they've been better at home.
Well, you can't.
Haven't the Leafs
and with what the Leafs
times
do with
in
bad
Anaheim
teams,
too?
what the Leafs do with bad teams, it's not a layup. But make the point count tomorrow against LA and rebound and try to get 2 off a really good team at home that never loses at home.
Well, that's what I thought about last night before I went to bed at 1:40 a.m. or whatever the hell it was. Is they'll win in LA and then lose in Anaheim just to piss people off because that's what they do, right? Like, it's like they'll have a great showing against a really great team, and you're like, okay, hey, and then the next night it's like, yep, show up, and that's, I mean, we're gonna have these swings down the stretch. California it used to be murderer's row. It's not. But it's still a pain in the ass to go through time change, all of that quick in and out. Like, it's not the layup we expect it to be. I'm not lying. Like, I was laying there last night yawning at 1 o'clock in the morning, and these guys are trying to get a point, right?
Last night when Toffoli made it 5-3, my finger was on the trigger.
Off button.
I was in bed.
And he hit the post of the empty netter, too.
Exactly. My routine on a West Coast game is first 2 periods downstairs and third period upstairs, and if it's time to shut it, I shut it. And I'm sitting there, and Toffoli makes it 5-3, and my finger is twitching. I'm like, shut it. Gone. There's no way. And the only thing that stopped me wasn't the Leafs. It was the Sharks. I'm like, the Leafs can still come back and win this game. And sure enough, Tavares in his office goes to the net, tips one in. Willie it's 42nd. Like, Willie's up to 42. And it's not as extreme as it was last year, but Willie is Austin. Like, William Nylander is this year's version of what Matthews was a year ago. Those were the goals Matthews scored last year. He scored the 2 in San Jose. He scored the 1 with 10 seconds left or whatever to tie it. It's just reversed. Now, you could add 27 more goals or whatever. Matthews did it more last year. But Willie has played that role. Like, he's the closer for this team in terms of offense, and the guy that gets them on the sheet quick, like he did last night, and the guy that gets them into overtime. And then the overtime was crazy. And then they get into a shootout, and Joseph Woll, who had an opportunity there to kind of save himself. Yeah. And shootouts are, I get it, skills competition, whatever, but he didn't make a stop, and, the rest is history. And after the game, Berube, was not happy with his team, and this is not a Randy Carlyle just okay moment, but a lot of times coaches will shield the goaltender and kind of not bring the goaltender into even the evaluation of the team.
Right.
Here's what Berube had to say about the group and Joseph Woll last night.
Well, they are a quick team, but I think that maybe the travel yesterday and everything, we just weren't on our toes. We got better as the game went along, we made some mistakes. We all got to be better, goalie included. We're just not good enough.
100% accurate. 100%
I don't think there's anything wrong with what he said, how he said it. All of it.
Honesty. It's like the one thing you get from Craig Berube is he doesn't like. There has been, and I think this is his transition into Leafland, where it's like, yeah, that player's day to day, and they know, like Austin's in Germany. He's like, yeah, I may play him more. Like that, that has been programmed into him. That's from the organization. But from Craig Berube, the coach, that's what you get. Honesty. Goalie wasn't good enough. We weren't on our toes. Travel, all of that. I think he was bang on in his assessment. There was nothing wrong with that.
Well, and listen, Woll's going to start again. Stolarz isn't going back-to-back this weekend. Yep. So he's playing in Anaheim. And this is where, they didn't make him available to the media after the game. I think that's I'm torn on that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm sure he'll speak today.
That's insane, torn on that. If a guy stinks in the net, put him out there. What do you got to say for it?
He should speak. There's not a lot of media on the road. It's late at night.
He loves going out there when he's great and they win. Yeah, that was awesome, smiling, laughing, or whatever.
No, you're right. He should. He's a veteran.
It's like Colin Morikawa. The guy loses Bay Hill and he's like, I got no time for anybody. Get lost. If he ever wins again, everyone should just walk out and write their own report. Screw it. Don't listen to him.
Yeah, I think this is them trying to protect him. I think that's what this is.
Hayes, it's the NHL, dude. He's an NHL goalie and a grown-ass man. Protect him from what?
Goalies are treated differently. They always have been. That in your career. Goalies, they look at goalies differently. They treat them differently. And he's fragile right now. And I think the concern is that goal, you don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but that's one that can hang around you. That's one, it's like the yips almost. That can freak you out. The next time he comes out to play the puck noodles, you know what's in his head.
Well, you're
that's
on
a
lists.
blooper last night that
you're
created.
On lists, right? What happens, and we say it all the time, you're on Lindsay and Kara's or whoever's working Sports
10,
Center.
Absolutely.
You're on a top 10 list, and they're going to go top 10 own goals, and it's Marc-Andre Fleury, and it's Joseph Woll, and we're going to see, I was Lena Solm, or who was I? Alex Lyon or Cam Talbot. I can't remember. I've been in so many cities. But one of the goalies had a mess behind the net last night. And I mentioned, I'm like, I remember myself giving away a puck behind the net to Todd Marchand, who was playing for the Oilers at the time, and he just stuffed in the net. It's embarrassing. And then you're on a list. Joseph Woll made a list last night, and it sucks. But you're right. You do second guess when you get out there going, I can't dink around here. I'm not going to make that extra play. Now, Woll handles the puck better than I ever did, so I think he'll be fine. But in a vacuum, he was a lot more cautious getting out of the net the rest of the game, I'll be honest.
Absolutely he was, and he probably will be the next time. And
yep.
I don't know, Noodles, you can speak on this. Goalie, I'm a believer. If you're a veteran and something happens, outside of extreme circumstances where something crazy might take place where you'd say, let the guy just breathe. I think most veterans have to come out. The captain's got to come out and speak. Veterans, again, Morgan Riley should be speaking, et cetera, et cetera. Goalies, he's not technically a rookie. He's still a young goalie trying to find his way. But the last two games have been ugly for him, and last night in particular was an embarrassing night for him. And I'm curious how you think they should have handled that post-game.
I think here's what – because I'll be honest, his comments after his last game was like, you take away some lessons and stuff like that. To do it 2 games in a row, it's a little bit tougher. So I think they probably erred on the side of caution because exactly the focus is going to be on the loss and on the goal against, the one goal. So there's nothing – if he comes out and tries to be positive and goes, hey, I'm going to take a lesson, I'm going to do, say all the cliche things – there's nothing positive he can get out of that. So I think they probably made an executive decision to go, no news is not good news. It's just we'll keep him out of the information cycle. He's already going to be in it. So if he had played really well last game, it's not a big deal. But he didn't have the best game in his last, and he came out with all of those comments. I'm going to learn from this, even in a loss. Wasn't that his comments? Even in a loss, I learned to get better and all of that. That was all the cliches last game. Now you come out with another bag of cliches last night.
You start
it's tough. So I
back a little bit,
I understand, and they're grown men who make a lot of money. I get it.
That's my point, Jamie. Like, I just think that this talk is crazy to even think that a grown-ass man in the best league in the world, there's not a better league in the world. And it's like, I didn't play that good, so please don't talk to me about it. That's crazy.
I would much rather,
man.
The best advice I ever got from, I'm biased, but the best PR guy, who's one of my best friends, told me, disarm people with the truth. You go out there and say, I didn't play well, I need to be better. That's it. And you move on. Like, to me, that's where people go, yeah, you didn't have your best, but we can't wait till you do have your best. Like, I think the minute you start running from it or not available and all that, it leads to people talking about it even more, as opposed to, we're running a soundbite today from Woll going, hey, I screwed up on that play. I need to be a lot better.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it would be probably over, where now
it's over.
They're going to get to L.A. and he's going to speak. You would presume, or at some point he'll speak, and it'll likely come up again. But Stolarz are going tomorrow, and Woll will play Sunday in Anaheim. And listen, he wasn't alone. He gives up 5, and then in the shootouts are separate, I guess, a separate analysis.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of goals where he had to have them. I thought early in the game there were a couple where he had to have them, but his team did not help him. And I thought, again, Austin Matthews got better as the game went on. Not good enough to start the game. Like an 18-year-old Macklin Celebrini can't be pushing you into your zone all night, and that was happening a lot last night. That's just not good enough. He's so good, but he's 18. He's 18, and he's learning his way, and he's a really good player. But I looked at that top line. I didn't think they had anything going the first 30, 40 minutes. On the power play, there was some dancing, and they were doing their thing at times, although they were out there, I thought, somewhat lazy on the shorthanded goal. And Berube got him off right afterwards. Like the second they gave up that shorty, 15 seconds in, he said, get out. And they put the second unit out. But Matthews and company and Marner, not good enough last night. But, you also you look at whether or not with 10 games to go, they're going to tinker it all with the roster. And what's going to happen with the peripheral players, which are not the end of the world discussions, but can be in certain moments. Simone Benoit, he pinches last night when 3 guys are deep, doesn't keep the puck in, which is completely unacceptable for a 6th defenseman.
He's been pulling some pucks out of the cage lately.
Yes. Yeah. Like this play for a 6th defenseman in the National League, you keep that in with your teeth if you have to. Like, you cannot flub that puck and jump and get beat. You cannot do it. And he did. Robertson, a couple lazy plays on the puck, takes a lazy stick penalty, boom, they score on it. Like, that's the thing. It's not just the big boys. The big boys are going to play, and they're going to have to redeem themselves, and they're going to have to drag this team forward.
What kind of options are you talking about if Benoit comes out?
Well, Myers, I think, should go in tomorrow night. Yeah, again, I'm not saying Philippe Myers is the second coming of Adam Foote. He's not, and I don't even – and maybe they're set on Benoit being the guy, and they're just going to let him run with it, and they want him to learn from it. But I think that's dangerous to just say he's a 6'7" Benoit. That's what he is. Like, he shouldn't be a lock to be in the lineup. And wouldn't you want to get Myers some playing time? He hasn't played in a couple of weeks.
I think there is. If you go back, I'm of the belief, I don't know how you guys feel, if a guy has an off night, you don't immediately pull him from the roster. But Benoit has had some stumbles, as you guys have mentioned.
Now.
So it's not.
Weeks.
It's not. This is a trend. So a reset, allowing another guy to jump in there, put Ekman Larson back on the left side, have Myers on the right. I have no problem with that. I think it's probably what is going to happen. But it has to be methodical. If they believe that Benoit if they were starting the playoffs and everybody was playing to their capabilities, and they believe that he is part of that lineup, then their thought process might be to let him work through it and say, hey, we need more from your game, lull in this stretch right here. But I don't, for a guy like that, for him to sit one night, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world.
Not the end of the world. Exactly. But, and that happens in the playoffs too, right? You put in a 6th defenseman, it's interchangeable. You have 2 bad games, or you don't like things, or the kill isn't great, or whatever, they change them. And that's going to happen. Like the 5 guys are playing, which is a rarity, somewhat of a rarity for this team. Over the years, there was generally a 5, 6, 7, 8 defenseman type combination where you weren't quite sure what Keefe was going to do. The 5 guys, if they're healthy, they're playing, and you know it. And so it really is about one defenseman and how interchangeable the 2 guys are. It's between Benoit and Philippe Myers. But, you got a big one tomorrow night. You got a big one, and it's, crunch time here. Now all of a sudden Florida's the one with a game in hand. That happens quickly. They got Utah at home. Brad Marchand's making his debut tonight, and he's playing on a line with Sam Bennett. And I am quite curious to see what that looks like.
Menaces. I worry that they try too much to be like that. Like sometimes you have to let
they've been around long enough where they know they just can't go out there and be the Hanson brothers for crying out loud.
but it is. You guys see it all the time. Somebody wants to make an impression, and they're going to defer to this guy, defer to that guy. You're right. They're veteran guys. Just go out and play. But in a heated battle, like whoever's facing them has to have their head up in scrums and head up everywhere, because those guys are, if they want to play for keeps, they might not play for keeps on a Friday night in March, but they'll play for keeps a month from now. And
Absolutely.
that's where,
will Tkachuk play on that line? Is that the plan? I don't know. I mean, I could see it. I could see a Tkachuk, Bennett, Marchand line, and maybe up top you got Reinhart with Verhaeghe and Barkov, and move Rodriguez down, and he's with Lundell, and that could be the case, man.
They've got some options there.
They got a lot of options in Florida, and you're right about, like, I think Marchand this could be a tough transition. A lot of times naturally you just assume guys are going to find their way. He may Scott Laughton this, and credit to Scott Laughton. He scored last night. I thought he played much better. Good for him. Awesome. Get off the schneid. You got yourself a goal. But this is uncharted territory for him. All he knows is Boston, 15 years, coming off an injury, going into someone else's room. Like, it may not be that smooth. It could be. The Panthers are banking on it being smooth, but there's never any guarantee when you've got a scenario like this one.
I think he is a veteran guy who has probably played against or known these guys for years. So it could be the seamless transition for his personality. Guys will be like, hey, you're fine. Just, you got to figure out the system, the way they want to coach, the way they want to forecheck, all of that. The guy who's impressed me in watching Florida is that Seth Jones has had a resurgence. Like, he looks like he's skating better.
Yeah.
They obviously, you look back on it, they knew the Ekblad thing was coming down the pike, so they make that move, right? But it just, like, Jones looks, and they're playing him a ton.
Get out of Chicago, man.
He just seems like he has a purpose. Chicago might be the old Buffalo, where if you give a guy a glimmer of hope and he's got a chance to compete for a cup in the playoffs, and it's not just misery, that's what you're going to get.
So that's where I'm thinking maybe Marchand breathes some life into, what's going on there. I ran into the Boston Bruins staff this morning in Detroit. I guess they must be there tomorrow. But they were, they were at the gym and at the hotel and stuff, and I was chatting them up. And, Boston's heading in, a different direction. They're in one, and it's not, it's not good. It's ugly losses. Like, that's what, you can lose, but we always talk about the dignified, hey, you lose 3-2 and you battle, and maybe you just don't have enough that night. And some of their losses have been significant.
Yeah, they're getting pumped.
Blown out of the building and pumped.
What did you make of that Detroit team last night, Noodles? Like, weren't they supposed to be scratching, like, clawing?
Nobody wants the second wild card spot. Like, nobody. Pierre LeBrun tweeted out the last 10 games of these teams. It's all horrendous. Like, the Habs lost to Philly. We're chasing the game the whole night last night. Detroit, they were down 3-0 at one point, Noodles.
Yeah,
and they
4-1, I think. Yeah, 4-1 too. But it was
none of the 83 points might get you in the way these teams are playing right now.
That's why I think the Rangers are getting
83.
No.
I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but dude, they have 10 games left. The Habs are the pace car at 75 points. None of them are getting to 90. Not like the Habs aren't getting 15 of their last 22 points. I don't see it. I don't see that happening.
I think it's 87 to 88.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, depending. I don't have but I don't have the schedule. Do they play each other?
Well, there's going to be some turnover with because a lot of these are divisional opponents. But Pierre LeBrun tweeted this out earlier today.
Yeah.
The race for 8th in the East is begging for a team to control. Record in the last 10. The Habs 3-3-4. The Islanders 4-3-3. The Rangers 3-6-1. Columbus 2-7-1. Detroit 3-7. None of them are. The Islanders are 4-3-3. You'd think that was the 1980 Islanders compared to these other.
it's
gong shows.
It is crazy, and you're seeing these teams, but some of them went on their heaters and they're having that market correction. I thought St. Louis was going to have a market correction. They found a way to win.
How about last
night
your boy Dylan Holloway again?
Yeah.
Turned the game around.
28 cookies.
He turned the game
the
around.
guy's a hell of a player, and
game winner.
You guys know I called it on Trade Center last year. Somebody should have offer sheeted him, and they did.
They did for less than $3 million,
which is crazy. What
he's contract.
He's a great player, and
man,
and
Edmonton got pumped last night in Seattle too.
They were no good last night.
That was not a good scene. So,
no.
MJ coming up. Mike Johnson just after 5. Jonas Siegel, our buddy Jonas, is in LA at Leafs practice, so he'll join us a little bit later in the hour. He was in the building last night. His take on what he saw live. What does he make of the post game? The reaction from Berube, Joseph Woll not speaking, what we can expect the next 2 days. They're in LA tomorrow, Anaheim on Sunday. Jay's back in action tonight, trying to keep the ball in the park. Kevin Gausman's on the mound.
What the hell was going on there
6
yesterday?
home runs they gave up yesterday, Noodles. That is an American League record for opening day.
I had a horse eye on that because
so did I. We were on the air, and I'm watching. I honestly thought it was replays.
You should have seen this guy yesterday. He's like, oh, they hit another home. He goes, oh, actually, they hit another one.
I thought it was a replay.
Then he goes, is that a replay? No, that's another one. That's another one.
It was unbelievable to watch, right field in particular, that bullpen out there. It was just like candy being dropped in it.
Yeah,
it was
they had that
ridiculous.
catcher in the bullpen that was jumping up and down every homer, and he got a lot of exercise yesterday.
He was very happy.
Looked like a big crowd, though, opening day.
Yeah. Always is opening day. A lot of people we knew down there said, well, it's a little bit lifeless. As of by the third inning, the game was effectively over. And they're back in action tonight with Gausman on the mound. Old Charlie Morton on the mound.
Dude, Charlie Morton, is that the same guy that's been around forever?
Yeah, 41-year-old Charlie Morton. Yeah,
he was supposed to retire like 3 years ago, and then he hung on with the Braves.
That's right. That's right. He went through Tampa, and the Braves picked him up, and now Baltimore's got him slotted as their number 2 starter.
I love it. Old Charlie
Dude,
Morton.
I'm telling you, he might be 44 years old.
I think he's 41, yeah. He's probably my age. He's like 41, 42. We got to look this up. Is Charlie Morton older than me?
Yes, I would say yes, a million percent.
Okay,
I think he's 44 years old.
We'll come back with an answer on that. We got Jonas later in the hour. Dear Hazy B this afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Jonas Siegel coming up from L.A. Leafs practicing right now ahead of the Kings game tomorrow. Jonas was at the Shark Tank last night. So catch up with Jonas a little bit later on. Mike Johnson still to come. Dear Hazy B. Cameron Maben coming up as well. You see Shohei Ohtani hit a home run, which was not opening. I guess it was opening day at Dodger Stadium, but they've already played 2 games in Japan.
Waved at it?
Yeah, just look at that. Like I was watching it live, and pitcher hung it was like a sinker that was just, and he barely swung, and it just flew
effortless,
into the left field.
Like it's just effortless with him.
He's such a machine. And he works to count like the guys were talking about it last night. I think it was Carl Ravitch, and I don't know who the color guy was. He was referencing like Babe Ruth the last time we saw someone with that presence, and I'd have to push back. That's a Jonas comment, like these eyes, Juan Soto. I know Barry Bonds is like a poisonous name to mention because of roids and stuff, and as great as Ohtani is, nothing touches Bonds in his prime in terms of just terror. But Ohtani's got that kind of vibe. He's bigger than Bonds in terms of like his height, but he's got the big like elbow pad on, and he just looks like you can't get him out. Like he's just terrifying. And I'm not.
Is he like head and shoulders above everyone, like best in his sport? Like is he better than everyone in baseball, more than McDavid is at hockey, or
I'm not sure
Tiger was.
I'm not sure that that's the case because now
he is so good, man. Like I think he's way better than everybody.
I think he might be, but let's not forget Aaron Judge is a guy that is capable of doing, hitting 60 bombs.
Yeah, but is he stealing 50 bases?
He is not stealing anything.
Is he pitching?
He's not pitching, and that's I can't argue against that. You throw the pitching in there, that makes it's almost unfair to compare Ohtani to anybody else. It's just not. It's not a fair fight, basically. And so I guess from that standpoint, I'm answering your question that, yes, the answer is yes, that he is the most dominant player because he hits home runs, he steals bases, and he can pitch. and he's like 6'3". He plays for the Dodgers.
He just looks like a stud. Like
Yeah.
He's like the Japanese version of Roy Hobbs the Natural. Like if you said like give me a perfect baseball player, like he's just got a look about him, man.
Yeah. And he's got to be with the Dodgers, man. Like it has to be with the LA Dodgers.
Yeah.
Because
but doesn't that jersey and the hat and everything look like it just suits him?
Everything about it. Dodger Stadium, the uniforms, they're always the best team. Like it is a perfect fit.
God, that guy's so good. Imagine watching that guy. Like if you just retired and said, "I'm going to just watch Dodger. I'm going to go to Dodger Stadium every day and watch the Dodgers." And you
big
got to
money
watch
in
that
LA,
guy.
and you're like, I'm just going to watch Shohei. I'm going to watch him 40 times live.
Yes,
Mary Hart right behind
and just
home plate.
hammer Coronas and sit back and watch this guy hit dingers and pitch every fifth day.
He's a draw. He's a draw. We went there. Wasn't he here like last June or something?
Yeah,
like on a weekend series, right? And cracked one out on the Friday and wasn't supposed to play, and then played and like.
Well, remember a couple years ago he was supposed to pitch here, and he went to Detroit and ended up pitching. They had a doubleheader that day, and he pitched the day game and then hit in the afternoon. And then his arm started to flare up, and then he came up here, and people were really bent out of shape because the thought was not only was he going to play here, he was going to pitch here, but because of the scheduling, and I think that was a couple years ago with the Angels, and Blue Jay fans were not happy about that. The CEO of Bayern Munich, not happy with Canada soccer. We'll tell you about that later this hour. But this story won't die. This Alphonso Davies, Canada soccer malpractice accusation just continues to kind of hover around the program.
Then it's Davies that's pissed then, Hayes. Because this, usually the owner of your club team would call you and say, hey, man, this kind of sucks. Let's get you better. Davey must be spitting out something other than this is just fine. I got to get better. He's pissed, clearly.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think there's any disputing that. And he's not speaking. His agent spoke, and now the CEO of his club team has spoken. I haven't heard anything from Alfonso. Man. He has to get out in front of this. But now the CEO is saying, why was he on the plane? Now, he's calling literally malpractice in terms of the medical staff. They didn't even check him out. They let him get on the plane with a torn ACL, and I don't know how that would have worsened anything personally. Him getting on
just the flight and things swell.
Blood
I don't
thinners
know.
and stuff like that. I guess so. I don't know either. But now that's the accusation, and they're claiming maybe there's going to be a legal fight. They're going to sue Canadian soccer. It's
come on.
It's really getting to a point though where this is an international story, and it's a really bad look for Canada. And again, Alphonso Davies, I hope, takes all this into consideration, and he needs to get out in front of all this. All right, Jonas coming up from L.A. ahead of Leafs Kings tomorrow. Leafs Ducks in Anaheim on Sunday after losing 6-5 in a shootout last night to the Sharks. Jonas was there. Get his take on the game. Get his take on what could happen this weekend. Mike Johnson still to come. Dear Hazy B as well. And the Jays back in action tonight. Raptors in town as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Mike Johnson coming up. Jonas Siegel's out there at Leaf practice, doing his job, so he can't answer the phone right now. But we'll get Jonas on, hopefully in the next few minutes, if not, certainly in the next hour.
Maybe he had a big night in San Jose. Never know.
Bet against that.
Possibly.
For sure.
It is known for, I think, karaoke and possibly trivia nights.
Never
all
know.
over the Bay Area. All over the Bay Area. Lots of trivia.
Jonas, Masters, and Myrtle. Big night doing whatever they do. Hammering beers, trivia, all of it.
All that stuff.
That's what they were doing. There was nothing else there.
Battleship. Come on. Come on.
Well,
that's what they would be playing, yes.
I think you get out of San Fran, you get to L.A. San Fran, I don't think of as a nightlife place.
No, the city's a dump now, but it used to be an unbelievable
It's always
city.
kind of been.
Let's rip on San Fran now.
Let's put that on the list.
Add them to the list. There's nothing but just bridges and fog, and that's it in San Fran.
It used to be one of the most beautiful cities with a ton of stuff to do, and it's become a dump. I'm sorry. I've been there. And
You're there all the time, making
no,
sure
but I've
you
been
know
there.
what's going on in San Fran.
I'm just telling you it's a dump.
Okay.
I feel bad for it because it's one of those cities that's had a tough run, and it should be a lot better.
It's had a tough run. It has.
Yeah.
I don't know when that was because I was there a decade ago, and I don't mind San Fran. I've been there a couple
I'm
times.
talking in the last 2 years and 3 years, it's a dump. It's turned into a dump.
I'll take your word for it. I didn't know you were assessing. You were a city
homeless
assessor.
Camps and stuff. No, I was there, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened to this city?
Okay.
Like it used to be like I'm telling you, it was one of the best cities in America.
Great town. Great town.
It's turned into a mess, unfortunately.
Well, that is unfortunate. But I think if you're looking to party in California, LA is the place.
No, you go to LA.
Yeah, you got to get to LA. LA for sure. We'll catch up with Jonas here in a moment. Speaking of Myrtle, he tweeted out last night after the game because there was a lot of ammo coming off you lose to the Sharks twice in 2 weeks. Like there's a lot of ammo there for people to jump on you. And James tweeted out the Sharks only have 2 wins against teams in a playoff position in their last 29 games. Both are against the Maple Leafs. So that one hurts.
Sarcastic tweets were just Myrtle was driving the bus of the sarcastic tweets last night.
Yeah,
he was just revving up the Leafs nation.
Well, they're chasing the game all night. They're down quick. They're down 3-1.
I think one of them was just. I think it just read, "This is embarrassing."
Yeah, I think I saw that one. And listen, it was at times last night. Like there's no question about that. And now they got to get back on the saddle against the Kings tomorrow. You got 2 quick games, and you're coming home, and Florida's waiting for you on Wednesday. So you got the Panthers coming up. You got 10 games left. And you want to talk about embarrassing. Pittsburgh got pumped last night. Yet it was a celebration to an extent because Sid reached his point per game mark.
Yeah.
So that's 20 seasons in a row with at least a point per game, which is just a remarkable statistic.
Insane.
That passes Wayne Gretzky, most in NHL history.
And they got shredded.
They got
7-2.
Smoked by Buffalo last night. 7-3. I think at one point it was 7-1 or 7-0.
Yeah, it was ugly.
7-1. I think Sid's goal was 7-1. And
they celebrated that one. Which sucks because, it's at that point when you're giving up a touchdown, it's not good, right?
He's Mike Trout with the Angels. Like that's what it's become now. Sid goes out and scores, and he's going to end up with 100 points.
Guys,
he's
I've
on the
told you
Angels.
before, I find it to be one of the most bizarre situations in the league where it's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to act like we're a good team, and we're going to go out and get absolutely pumped by everyone. Don't say nothing about anybody. Sid's here. He's doing his thing. Don't even criticize the coach. He's still our coach. He's not going anywhere. Everyone just does what they do. And it's just like, what the hell is going on there? I find it to be bizarre, man.
I think it's just the mandate, and it's kind of like accepted. Like
Noodles, a mandate for what? What organization has a mandate to say, let's fake like we're going to be good, have a bunch of old players, and get shredded every night? Well, I find it to be ludicrous, man.
I'm not saying the mandate from the outside, from us looking in. I'm saying internally, there's probably been some sort of mandate to Kyle from ownership going, give this group a run, try and add to it, because you don't start adding Kevin Hayes and guys who are 32 and 33.
Who the hell adds Kevin Hayes to some team that wants to be good? No disrespect to Kevin Hayes. Well, he's at the end of the line. So why are you adding him to what? Put you over the top? Sorry.
Well, I know, but my point being is I think internally that was the plan. And at some point when Sid says check, please, or he decides I will go along with this rebuild, but they're going to have to blow it up. They haven't yet. And
that's what I'm saying. Okay, so you've done it 2 years in a row where you've been god-awful. Are you actually going to go to training camp with that team and say, we're going to try again to be good come October? That would be the definition of insanity. With the goaltenders, the way the whole team plays, all of it. It's nonsense.
Yeah. That's a big part of the issue is the goalies. The whole state of Pennsylvania has the worst goaltending per state/province on earth. On earth. Philly and Pitt.
There's not one good goalie of the bunch
in the whole state.
I owe both of you, well, not an apology, but a correction because you called it on Torts. I was wrong on that one. I was like, this guy's going to be around in the next year. They'll keep the next day he's out. Gone.
Well, now you see the reporting that it sounds like him and
there was an altercation with York.
Him and Cam York, and last night Shaw takes over behind the bench. York's in full uniform, didn't play a shift.
Yeah, you'd like to hear the whole story.
Like something happened there. Like Kevin Kurz, who we had on yesterday with The Athletic, he's pretty tapped in, and he tweeted out, a source within the Flyers organization told him, it's fair to say there was an altercation. It wasn't physical, but something went down between Tortorella and York, and that, quote-unquote, they both crossed the line. So it may have been what led to Tortorella going. Right,
Yeah.
It may have been.
He was going at somebody on the bench during the game in Toronto, and it was something with the iPad. I don't know what, but something must have escalated where it got to players, to management, and Danny Briere and Jonesy just had to say, that's enough. That's it.
Exactly it. It's got to be, because it looked like his body language from about halfway through the game changed, right? He just stood there like it was something weird and unacceptable happening.
But guys, we talked about it yesterday. When you bring in Torts with this team did you expect anything different? Like, did you expect it to go any other way, that there wasn't going to be some kind of blow-up like that?
Well,
Torts is not designed to be with a young group. What?
Yeah, that's how he is. That's how he's wired. He's a guy.
Why are anyone surprised by that? Like,
you know what you're going to get, but he is a. Listen, I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. I think he's a guy who's, you look at his wins, you look at his record. Unfortunately, the game has changed, and he's a guy that is a short life guy. 3 years, and the expiration date hits, and the expiration date is hit. You're right. The team wasn't good enough. He was trying to teach these young kids. Young kids are different now, and the Michkov kid, like, you're teaching him in a different language, though, too.
Right.
Yeah.
But he goes out there, rips home a couple, and that was always where I came at it from with Tortorella, is the players are going to win. They have to. You have, unfortunately, you have to. If you're rebuilding, you have to get the young guys that you think can be the building blocks. You have to commit to them, and the coach has got to be the right guy for those players. And Babcock wasn't with this Leaf group, so they moved on. And Tortorella, I guess, wasn't for these guys, or something happened behind the scenes and they moved on. Doesn't guarantee anything for Philly, but Montreal ran into one last night. Like, the Habs are going in there thinking, could Torts not have just survived one more day, please?
Yeah.
Like, let us get through Philly and pick up 2 points and then fire them on the Friday. Because, Philly came out guns a-blazing last night, and Michkov in particular, and the Habs are on the wrong side of it.
I always thought, and this is a respectful question that I want you guys to answer.
No,
because it's true.
One thing. You said it's respectful. It's going to be the most disrespectful thing.
It's
you can
so
ever.
It's not, because I don't want it to be taken the wrong way.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you believe that Mike Babcock was the wrong guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs at that time for those kids?
I didn't. I thought he was the perfect guy.
Well,
you don't think he was the wrong guy?
I will say this. Let me answer let me give you my answer. That Babcock is closer to a Tortorella,
right,
than he is. I can't really give you an example of a young coach like, a Warsawski like we saw in San Jose last night. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, Babcock was a guy, my way or the highway. I'm a winner. I've won a cup. I'm going to the Hall of Fame. I'm getting paid. You're going to listen to me. I don't care what the GM said. Like, that was his Tortorella's the same way. Like, they're cut from a very similar cloth. Now, the Leafs, though, why I think it actually was probably still going to work for them was because they made the playoffs immediately, and they were actually a good team pretty much immediately with Babcock. The first year was the dignified tank. They were terrible. Pain is coming and all that. But they shook out who they had to shake out. They kept the right guys. They brought in the right kids, and immediately they were competitive.
Right.
So Babcock had the ability to do what he was supposed to do almost immediately. The difference with Tortorella and Philly is that team's not any good.
Well, yeah.
They got no veterans, no goalies, no, you know what I mean? Like, they're so I guess
different scenarios.
Babcock was a rare scenario where it actually could work, even though technically it didn't start the way you would think it should with a guy of that pedigree.
Well, and he had Babcock has a shelf life, exactly
Absolutely.
what we were talking, and he hit it. But at that time, I think the organization was like, we're getting, and believe me, we all were right there. Hey, you're getting the Team Canada's coach, you're getting a cup winner, you're getting a guy with pedigree.
And they paid him a fortune,
and
too.
And they paid him a fortune, all of that. But I think you look back at the progression, like right into Sheldon. Sheldon said the exact same things that Babcock said for years, and it was like, okay, until those guys will get to the next level. So, it just, with Torts, he didn't have the Matthews and Marners and that at that young age. You got Michkov. Now, he might end up being one of those, but it's a different talent pool than what Babcock was dealing with.
That was it. I mean, that second year, the Matthews rookie year, they had Bozak and Kadri up the middle of the ice in their prime.
Right.
Like, good players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they could
By the way,
isolate them.
Shout out to the Leafs turnaround, because if anybody's paying attention, they drafted those kids, and 2 years later they were making the playoffs. Some of these other organizations, take a look around. You're on 5-6 with not even sniffing. So as much as you're disappointed by playoff exits and losses and stuff, which it does suck, the alternative is what you're seeing around the league. Absolute nonsense.
That is valid 10 years ago, for sure. And a part of that was Babcock was here to do it. Part of it was they got Freddie Anderson right away. That was Lou. Said, I got to get a goalie. I got to have a guy that can play, that can win. And that was a big part.
The biggest part, though, is the players were players. They turned out and they were factors in winning games.
Immediately.
Some of these other jokers who want the big contracts, they're not decision makers in games. They just go out there and they play and they blend in like everybody else. They're phonies.
For sure. And, then you mix in a Hyman and a Brown, and there were a number of guys who stepped up and are lifers in the league, like legit NHL players.
Yeah.
All right, hour 2 coming up. I guess Jonas, I don't know. Jonas is big timing us
being
now.
a hero, isn't he?
Oh, he's Hollywood Jonas. Hollywood Jonas.
I want him on today. He better make up for this.
We're going to get him on. We'll track him down. He's got a trivia appointment in about 45 minutes. We'll get him on before that. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.